In just the past week, Trump has distracted us with gratuitous trade wars with Canada, Mexico, and China, deportation flights to Guantanamo, illegally shutting down the U.S. Agency for International Development, ethnic cleansing in Gaza, attempts to ban transgender athletes, and giving Elon Musk access to your private records in the Treasury Department's restricted payment system. This is how Trump uses chaos to distract us, not just from one thing, but from everything. Just a week ago, 67 people were killed in Washington, D.C. in the worst U.S. aviation disaster in decades when a military helicopter collided with a commercial airliner. Then, 2 days later, a second plane crashed in Philadelphia, killing 7 people. In normal times, this would be a major news story for weeks. And during the last administration, it would have been a scandal for the president, the Pentagon, and the Transportation Department. If Biden had left the top FAA job unfilled, sent out a memo calling on air traffic controllers to resign, appointed an underwear dancing reality TV star as Secretary of Transportation, replaced a 4-star general, Secretary of Defense, with an unqualified heavy-drinking TV news host, refused to visit the crash site, and then gone golfing for the weekend, Republicans would have demanded his immediate impeachment. They would have been more outraged if Biden had tried to deflect responsibility by blaming the hiring standards of air traffic controllers and speculated recklessly about the cause of the tragedy while bodies were still being pulled out of the water. But despite Trump's blatantly racist lie that DEI caused the DC plane crash, many in politics and the media have already moved on. Just as they did when Trump lied last year that Haitian immigrants were eating people's cats and dogs. And that's how Trump escapes responsibility. Over the years, he has developed a 3-pronged strategy for survival. Number 1, take credit for everything good. Obama's economy, Biden's ceasefire, business deals that were already in place long before he came into office, and even the Democratic stimulus check that his own party opposed all became rebranded as Trump's victories. Number 2, blame others for everything bad. More than 400,000 Americans died from COVID under Trump's watch, but his response was unequivocal.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
He accepted no accountability for his own misinformation that fueled millions of COVID cases, thousands of deaths per week, and rising unemployment during the crisis. Number 3, create as much chaos as possible. Trump's overarching goal is to keep things moving so quickly that critics, reporters, and investigators don't have time to focus on any one thing, good or bad. That's because the good is usually a facade and the bad is far worse than he wants you to know. Critics often say that Trump is using one particular story to distract from another, but that's only half true. The truth is, there is no story he wants us to focus on. With Trump, everything is a distraction. He doesn't want us to focus on anything except the words coming out of his mouth at that moment. Trump fears that if people spend time digging deeply, they'll discover his entire life is a fraud, from the bone spurs that kept him out of the Vietnam War in the 1960s to the fake spray tan that colors his face in 2025. He does not want you to see him as the twice impeached politician who never won a majority of the public's vote, or the 78-year-old convicted con artist who still owes $500 million in fraud judgments, or the failed businessman who inherited $400 million from his daddy and somehow managed to declare bankruptcy 6 times. Trump's survival depends on his ability to preserve a myth based on a flimsy foundation of cheap plastic playing cards. But if we plan to survive the next 4 years, we must focus. We cannot ignore the daily outrages, but neither should we move on so quickly that we forget the last one. And most of all, we must not lose sight of the bigger picture. To paraphrase Shakespeare, there's a method to the madness. And with Trump, the madness is the method.